Then David summoned the priests, Zadok and Abiathar, and these Levite leaders, Uriel, Asaiah, Joel, Shemaiah, Eliel, and Aminadab, all the ones that were mentioned in this section up here. He said to them, "You are the leaders of the Levite families. You must purify yourselves and all your fellow Levites, so you can bring the ark of the Lord, the God of Israel, to the place I have prepared for it. Because you Levites did not carry the ark the first time, the anger of the Lord our God burst out against us. We failed to ask God how to move it properly. So the priests and the Levites purified themselves in order to bring the ark of the Lord, the God of Israel, to Jerusalem. Then the Levites carried the ark of God on their shoulders with its carrying poles, just as the Lord had instructed Moses." See, yeah, that's the proper instruction there. Carrying it on their shoulders with the poles. What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. Alrighty. So we're looking at 1 Chronicles chapter 15. So we had the big old genealogy that kind of got people up to speed on their ancestry that led them up to the, as of the writing of this, current situation of being exiled in Babylon, and the, genealogy then kind of flowed into more of a history where it got into King Saul and then David and some things that they did and some of the things that their people under them did, at least in David's case. But really the whole thrust of it is to say to the people, hey, I know this situation seems bad, so let's figure it out here. Let's look at what got us to this point, and then we can see what went wrong, fix that, and move forward. And now, I do need to correct a little bit of something that I mentioned before as a possibility. I was thinking that some of the people who returned to Jerusalem early might have been sent there by Babylon to, teach the people the local religion or whatever, because of, the other people that Babylon planted there maybe needing to learn the local religion and not get random things like lion attacks. But it turns out that was actually what happened with the Assyrian exiles at first, not the Babylonian ones. So, not so sure that really applies to this situation. It could be a similar kind of thing, but it wasn't outright stated previously if that is the case. So, anyway, just making sure we're clear on that and making sure that I'm attempting to be as accurate as possible in what I say. Anyway, okay. Without further ado, let us start reading 1 Chronicles 15. David now built several buildings for himself in the city of David. He also prepared a place for the Ark of God and set up a special tent for it. Then he commanded, "No one except the Levites may carry the Ark of God. The Lord has chosen them to carry the Ark of the Lord and to serve him forever." So that hopefully takes care of the issue from before, where they were trying to move the Ark of the Covenant, and the one guy, Uzziah, I think was his name, reached out, touched it to try to, stabilize it, and God struck him dead there. Because, I guess he didn't have permission to carry it. Also, if I recall correctly, the way they had carried it before, it was always pretty much on their shoulders using these, carrying poles that they put through particular loops that were in the sides of it. So, that would have also, those poles would have also given them something between themselves and the main body of the ark. so then they're not touching it so directly and incurring the wrath of God. So, David thinks he's got it all figured out now, and is willing to give it another go. Verse 3. Then David summoned all Israel to Jerusalem to bring the ark of the Lord to the place he had prepared for it. This is the number of descendants of Aaron, the priests, and the Levites who were called together, seemingly for retrieving the ark and transporting it. Anyway, from the clan of Kohath, 120 with Uriel as their leader. From the clan of Merari, 220 with Asaiah as their leader. From the clan of Gershon, 130 with Joel as their leader. From the descendants of Elizaphan, 200 with Shemaiah as their leader. From the descendants of Hebron, 80 with Eliel as their leader. From the descendants of Uzziel, 112 with Aminadab as their leader. So, that is the only one that's not like a multiple of 10, just saying. Just found that slightly odd, not that it matters too much how many were involved there. Alright, so David's got the people together. They're gonna work on moving the Ark of the Covenant, aka the Ark of the Lord. I almost said the Lark. Alright, we'll move on to verse 11. Then David summoned the priests, Zadok and Abiathar, and these Levite leaders, Uriel, Asaiah, Joel, Shemaiah, Eliel, and Aminadab, all the ones that were mentioned in this section up here. He said to them, "You are the leaders of the Levite families. You must purify yourselves and all your fellow Levites, so you can bring the ark of the Lord, the God of Israel, to the place I have prepared for it. Because you Levites did not carry the ark the first time, the anger of the Lord our God burst out against us. We failed to ask God how to move it properly. So the priests and the Levites purified themselves in order to bring the ark of the Lord, the God of Israel, to Jerusalem. Then the Levites carried the ark of God on their shoulders with its carrying poles, just as the Lord had instructed Moses." See, yeah, that's the proper instruction there. Carrying it on their shoulders with the poles. And now that they've realized all this, it should go fine. David realized what was wrong, and kind of almost similar to the exile's broader situation, he came to a moment of saying, okay, I've found the problem, now I know how to handle this, and we can move forward. Which is hopefully what Ezra, in writing this and telling this to all the people, what he's hoping will happen for the rest of the exiles. Interesting how just this little situation in this chapter works as a microcosm of the broader situation that he's trying to inform them about. Alright. Verse 16. David also ordered the Levite leaders to appoint a choir of Levites who were singers and musicians to sing joyful songs to the accompaniment of harps, lyres, and cymbals. So the Levites appointed Heman, son of Joel, along with his fellow Levites, Asaph, son of Berechiah, and Ethan, son of Cushiah, from the clan of Merari. The following men were chosen as their assistants: Zechariah, Jaziel, Shemiramoth, Jehiel, Unai, Eliab, Benaiah, Maaseiah, Mattathiah, Eliphelehu, Mikneiah, and the gatekeepers Obed-Edom and Jael. I don't know. Pronunciations. Alright. Oh yeah, also, backtracking ever so slightly, David, also specifically asked the priests and Levites to, cleanse themselves, to be purified and, as blameless before the Lord as possible before they go about this task of carrying the ark. So, all sorts of extra preparation going on there, too. Just noticed I missed a note up here talking about the clan of Gershon. Hebrew has Gershom with an M. Variant spelling, yeah. Same clan, though. It's only a difference of one letter, anyway. And that's one English letter, never mind what the Hebrew would be. Also, note here, that's what several Hebrew manuscripts in the Greek version say. The Masoretic text reads Zechariah ben Jaziel. Okay. Which I think would be more of, saying Zechariah is of some particular relation to Jaziel, not that they're two separate people. But they might have both been involved anyway. In any case, we've not only got the Levites being prepared here, but we've got musicians involved, who I guess were also Levites anyway, and assistants to the musicians. So, because there was supposed to be music constantly played, it mentioned sometime earlier about the musicians and how they were supposed to constantly be playing. So, maybe this is, even in transporting the ark, they were continuing that. So, let's continue on here in verse 19. Musicians Heman, Asaph, and Ethan were chosen to sound the bronze cymbals. Zechariah, Aziel, Shemiramoth, Jehiel, Unai, Eliab, Maaseiah, and Benaiah were chosen to play the harps. Mattithiah, Eliphelehu, Mikneiah, Obed-Edom, Jael, and Azaziah were chosen to play the lyres. Kenaniah, the head Levite, was chosen as the choir leader because of his skill. Berechiah and Elkanah were chosen to guard the ark. Shebaniah, Joshaphat, Nethanel, Amasai, Zechariah, Benaiah, and Eleazar, all of whom were priests, were chosen to blow the trumpets as they marched in front of the ark of God. Obed-Edom and Jehiah were chosen to guard the ark. Now we've got two sets of people guarding the ark. Maybe one pair was for the rear and another pair was for the front. Something like that. So, alright. We got the Levites prepped and ready to carry the ark. We've got musicians all around playing different instruments. In part just because this is a grand occasion, and a good thing that they're, moving the ark somewhere safer. And this is pretty much just breaking down the different musicians that were chosen for the different instruments and the roles that they played and whatnot. Specifically mentioning trumpets, lyres, which has a note next to it. Hebrew adds, according to the Sheminith, which is probably a musical term. The meaning of the Hebrew is uncertain. Okay. So there might have actually been a specific, composition of what they were supposed to play along the way. I'm not sure if that's exactly what it means, or if it could have been the equivalent of, a hymnal type thing, where they might have had a selection of things that were proper to play for the occasion. I don't know, but They've got this figured out way more than they did previously. From all sorts of different angles. Note there at harps, Hebrew says, according to Alamoth, which is probably a musical term, similar kind of thing. That, and especially with there being different names for the different instruments as far as what's added there, it really gives me the impression that that would be, something related to the music that they were supposed to play. Or at least that they were asked to in this case. I don't know if there was... I don't recall there being a particular description by God or prior priests or anything like that of specific music that needed to be played around the Ark of the Lord. So, maybe it was more so a request than like a direct from God command. Note there at guard, Hebrew says chosen as gatekeepers for the Ark. But they're moving the Ark, so calling them gatekeepers doesn't really make much sense. That might be the more literal translation from the Hebrew, but I think it more so means that they were just supposed to guard it. So, anyway. And the reason I said maybe the one pair here was guarding the front and the other was guarding the back was because it had specifically mentioned, priests blowing the trumpets as they marched in front of the Ark of God, and then it mentions the other guards. So, that's my thinking on that. So, now that they have the plan set, we will move on to verse 25, where it seems like they're actually going to move the Ark. Then David and the elders of Israel and the generals of the army went to the house of Obed-Edom to bring the Ark of the Lord's covenant up to Jerusalem with a great celebration. And because God was clearly helping the Levites as they carried the Ark of the Lord's covenant, they sacrificed 7 bulls and 7 rams. Because he was helping them and they were like, well, that means either they were giving their gratitude or asking for continued favor as they went with this. I note there at generals, Hebrew says commanders of thousands, which is probably roughly what they would have seen as a general. It also, in other cases, mentions commanders of hundreds and other lower amounts, so keeping the continuity of that, I think, is where the translators usually get generals, captains, and things like that. Verse 27 is where we left off. David was dressed in a robe of fine linen, as were all the Levites who carried the ark, and also the singers. And Kenaniah, the choir leader. I wanted to say director there. David was also wearing a priestly garment. So all Israel brought up the ark of the Lord's covenant with shouts of joy, the blowing of ram's horns and trumpets, the clashing of cymbals, and loud playing on harps and lyres. But as the ark of the Lord's covenant entered the city of David, Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked down from her window. When she saw David skipping about and laughing with joy, she was filled with contempt for him. Because I guess she thought that was, like, below his position, or something. In fact, I think it might explain that in a different verse. But, yeah, exactly. Debbie Downer mentality. So, they are moving the ark to Jerusalem, and I guess it's like as they're probably... Well, it says as they entered the city of David. She saw him dancing around like this and didn't like it. So, clearly they had at least gotten it to it's somewhere in Jerusalem by this point. Note here at priestly garment. Hebrew says a linen ephod or ephod. I've heard it pronounced ephod before. But yeah, that was like what the priests were supposed to wear when they were serving in the tabernacle or the temple. Basically, you know, doing their priestly duties. So, the fact that David was wearing that almost hints at him being viewed in such a way potentially by God, at least in terms of like a worship leader, you might say, or someone who, you know, leads the people in how they should be following God and giving him thanks and praise and even just relating with God. But that's where we leave things off for 1 Chronicles 15. Okay, so King David and the Levites and all them are coming at the idea of moving the Ark of the Covenant much more prepared this time. I don't know if he had checked the law of Moses before to see what it said about all that, but clearly he has this time. And yeah, they're gonna move it like it says. And in fact, as of this chapter, they are moving it, probably have even made it into Jerusalem, just haven't like settled it in its new home, so to speak, as of yet. And yeah, really, I know there are passages that talk about David being a man after God's own heart, and that's clearly not just from like a kingly leadership perspective, but even like, as this indicates with him wearing the priestly garment, also from like a spiritual leadership standpoint. Yeah, sure, he's not perfect, but his heart's in the right place. And I think that's really what it all boils down to with our own relationship with God, is the condition of our hearts and how much we put God at the center. But, yeah, that's all I got for this one. As always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell to get updates when I post new videos. Look down in the description for links to social media pages and all sorts of good stuff there. And leave your thoughts and questions down in the comments section below all that. So that'll do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. Whatever the case is, till next time, stay cool, people.